Hello! I would be very pleased if you would like the video. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos every day that will help you relax. I'm also curious where you are listening to me from and what time it is now. Write it in the comments. Enjoy watching! The first light of dawn filtered through the narrow, arched windows of the monastery, painting the stone walls with soft, golden hues. Brother Aelric stirred from his humble pallet, the thin straw mattress barely a comfort against the chill that lingered from the night. The faint scent of burning tallow from the lamps in the cloistered hall drifted through the corridor, mingling with the earthy aroma of the stone floors and the dampness carried in by the morning air. Each day began the same, with silent prayer and the ringing of the great bell that summoned the monks to the chapel. Pulling his coarse wool habit around his shoulders, Aelric rose and moved quietly, careful not to wake the others still resting. The monastery was alive with a rhythm older than any of its inhabitants, a heartbeat that dictated the life within its walls. Every step echoed slightly in the stone passageways, a reminder of the solitude and devotion that framed the lives of those who had renounced the world outside. Today, like every day, would be a tapestry of prayer, labor, and contemplation, each thread woven meticulously into the life of the monastic community. By the time the bell tolled its first call, Aelric had washed his hands in the cold basin of water set outside the dormitory, letting the chill sharpen his senses. He joined the line of monks who shuffled silently toward the chapel, their bare feet padding softly against the worn stone. The scent of incense was stronger here, mingling with the musty aroma of centuries-old wood and manuscripts. They knelt in orderly rows, heads bowed, voices rising in a monotone chant that resonated against the vaulted ceilings. The words were Latin, old and familiar, their rhythm guiding the monks into a state of focused devotion. After the morning prayers, the monks dispersed to their appointed duties. Aelric's task that day was in the scriptorium, where he would copy and illuminate manuscripts for the library. The room was quiet except for the scratching of quills and the occasional rustle of parchment. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching the gold leaf and delicate colors of unfinished illustrations. Hours passed in a meditative concentration, each stroke deliberate, each word written with care. The labor was exacting, yet it brought a quiet satisfaction. In every letter copied, a monk preserved the wisdom of ages for those who would come after. Mid-morning came with the tolling of a smaller bell, signaling a brief pause for sustenance. The monks gathered in the refectory, a simple hall where wooden benches lined long tables. Bread, cheese, and small bowls of pottage were served silently. Conversation was minimal, in keeping with the rule of silence that governed much of the monastery's life. Even the act of eating was an exercise in mindfulness, a time to reflect on the work accomplished and the prayers offered. Aelric found a moment to glance at the stone walls, decorated with faint frescoes depicting saints and the Virgin, their serene faces offering a quiet companionship that needed no words. After the meal, the community returned to their labor. Some tended the gardens, pulling weeds and harvesting herbs for the infirmary, while others repaired the cloisters or tended to the stables. Aelric returned to the scriptorium, quill in hand, the rhythmic scratching of ink against parchment merging with the distant hammering and murmurs of his brothers. Time seemed to lose its usual markers here. The hours were measured by the rise and fall of the sun, the tolling of bells, and the completion of tasks that might take days or weeks. In this ordered life, each monk found a balance between devotion and work, solitude and community, silence and song. As the sun climbed higher, its light shifted through the scriptorium's narrow windows, drawing golden lines across the wooden desks. Brother Aelric leaned close to his parchment, his quill poised carefully above the page. Every letter he formed was an act of patience, a prayer written in ink. Beside him sat Brother Oswin, older and nearly blind, yet still steady with his hand. He hummed softly under his breath, a low tune from his youth before he joined the monastery. The sound was gentle, almost blending with the faint rustle of parchment and the muted scrape of quills. Aelric admired Oswin's skill. Though the old monk's eyes failed him, his sense of touch guided each stroke. Deus lux mea est, he whispered as he wrote, God is my light. The words glowed faintly beneath the morning sun, as if the ink itself carried divine warmth. Outside, the courtyard bustled quietly. Young novices carried water from the well, their laughter quickly stifled by the watchful eye of Brother Prior. The monastery lived by discipline, but there was tenderness in its order, a rhythm that bound all souls together in purpose.
After midday prayers, Aelric joined the other monks in the garden. Rows of herbs stretched beneath the cloister arches, sage, lavender, mint, and thyme. Their scent filled the air, mingling with the earthy smell of soil freshly turned by calloused hands.
Brother Matthew, the herbalist, knelt nearby, sorting bundles of dried plants. Every leaf has its prayer, he said softly. Some heal the body, others calm the soul. Aelric nodded, placing mint sprigs into woven baskets, his fingers stained with green. In the distance, the bell tower marked the hour of none. Its deep sound rolled through the valley, echoing off the hills like a call from heaven. The monks rose from their tasks and crossed the cloister, silent and steady, their habits fluttering in the wind. Inside the chapel, the candles flickered against the carved stone walls. The chant began again, low, measured, eternal. Aelric's voice joined the others, weaving into the chorus that had been sung for generations. Each note felt timeless, as though the walls themselves remembered every prayer. When the service ended, the monks returned to their duties. Some repaired worn sandals, others polished the iron tools in the workshop. Aelric was sent to the library, where shelves of vellum manuscripts rose like silent towers of knowledge. Dust motes drifted in the sunlight like golden ash. He carried a small chest of new inkpots to the scribe tables. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and candle smoke. Here, thought itself seemed sacred, frozen in the shape of letters. Aelric traced a spine of a book gently, feeling its age, its weight, its purpose. As the afternoon waned, a stillness settled over the monastery. Even the birds outside grew quiet, perching on the stone walls as the shadows lengthened. Aelric paused by the window, gazing at the distant forest. Beyond the trees lay the world he had left behind, loud, uncertain, fleeting. In the monastery, time did not rush. It flowed like water in the cloister fountain. Steady, clear, endless. Aelric closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The day was not over, yet already he felt its quiet grace filling his soul like light through stained glass. The sun began its slow descent behind the monastery's stone walls, bathing the courtyard in amber light. The shadows of the cloister arches stretched long and thin across the flagstones, like the fingers of time reaching toward night. Brother Aelric finished his task in the library, returning the quills to their wooden box. He felt the faint ache in his back from hours of bending over parchment, yet his heart was calm. The rule of St. Benedict taught that labor was prayer in motion, and Aelric felt each line he copied as a small act of worship. Even exhaustion carried meaning here. As Vespers approached, the bell rang again, deep, resonant, ancient. Its tone rippled through the air, calling every brother to prayer. Aelric joined the silent procession through the corridor, the air cool and scented faintly of beeswax and old stone. Inside the chapel, light poured through stained glass windows, painting the walls in blue, red, and gold. The monks knelt in unison, the sound of their robes brushing the floor like a sigh. The chant rose once more, filling the sacred space with solemn beauty. Each voice blended perfectly with the next. No one stood above another, no one sought glory. Their harmony reflected the unity of their vows, humility, obedience, and service. In that still moment, Aelric felt part of something vast and eternal. When the final amen faded, the monks bowed and filed quietly into the refectory. Supper was their last meal of the day, simple fare, lentils, bread, and watered wine. A single monk read aloud from scripture as the others ate in silence, words echoing softly under the vaulted ceiling. Aelric listened while he chewed slowly, his thoughts following the reader's voice. The words spoke of peace, patience, and the virtue of simplicity. They were not just lessons but mirrors for the life the monks lived, unhurried, devoted, stripped of all vanity. After the meal, the brothers stood and gave a brief bow. Dishes were cleaned in quiet order. The flicker of torches along the corridor cast warm light over their faces, making the moment feel timeless, like a painting come alive. Outside, the first stars appeared above the bell tower. The wind carried the distant scent of pine and the faint cry of an owl from the forest. Night in the monastery was not silence alone. It was a living peace, filled with the breath of prayer and the pulse of the unseen. Aelric walked slowly toward his cell, passing the cloister garden one last time. The fountain glimmered in the moonlight, its soft trickle mingling with the whisper of leaves. He paused to cross himself, murmuring a quiet prayer for gratitude. Within his small room, he lit a single candle. Shadows danced along the walls, and the faint sound of chanting drifted from the chapel where the night watch had begun. Aelric removed his habit, folded it neatly, and knelt beside his bed. He thanked God for the day, for the strength to labor, the words to copy, and the silence that filled his heart. Outside, the wind sighed against the stone. The candle burned low, its light trembling like a final benediction before sleep. The monastery lay in near silence. Only the wind moved through the cloisters, carrying with it the scent of wet stone and candle wax. Somewhere in the distance, a lone bell tolled the hour, matins, the night prayer. The brothers rose from their cots, their movements slow but obedient. Brother Aelric rubbed his eyes, the chill biting through his wool robe. He stepped into the corridor where torches flickered against the ancient walls. Their light trembled on the carvings of saints, their faces calm, their eyes forever open in devotion. The monks walked barefoot to the chapel, each step a soft echo in the vast darkness. Their shadows stretched and merged along the floor. The rhythm of their lives was written in these silent processions, a sacred pattern older than memory. Inside, the chapel glowed faintly. The air was heavy with incense. Aelric joined his brothers at the wooden stalls, folding his hands in prayer. The chant began, low, mournful, beautiful. It seemed to rise not from their throats but from the stone itself. The words flowed like water. Domini, labia mea aperis. Lord, open my lips. The music filled the emptiness, weaving through the arches like silver thread. For a moment, time dissolved. Only the prayer remained, eternal and pure. When the chanting ceased, silence returned like a soft cloak. The monks sat still, eyes closed, lost in contemplation. Aelric felt his mind drift between wakefulness and dream. The candlelight shimmered on the crucifix, and he thought of the world beyond the walls, distant, forgotten. After matins, the monks dispersed quietly. Some returned to rest, others stayed to keep vigil. Aelric remained, his gaze fixed on the flickering altar candles. The light seemed to speak in a language of its own, one of endurance, of patience, of faith. At last, he stepped outside into the cloister. The night was cold and clear, the stars shining like tears upon the sky. The world beyond the monastery slept, but within these walls, the soul kept watch. The sound of the fountain whispered like prayer unending. He walked through the garden, his fingers brushing the cold stone of the wall. Every plant seemed asleep, every shadow at peace. He felt the quiet hum of God's presence in everything, in the still air, in the starlight, in his own slow heartbeat. Returning to his cell, Aelric lay upon his straw bed, the scent of earth and wax still in the air. Outside, the bell tolled once more, a reminder that even in darkness, time and faith continued their steady march. His eyes closed, the monastery dreamed with him. The night thinned slowly, and pale light began to seep across the sky. The monastery stirred once more, as though the very stones were waking from prayerful sleep. In the dormitory, Brother Aelric rose before the bell, his body weary yet peaceful. The chill of dawn wrapped around him like a familiar cloak. He washed his face in the cold basin, the water sharp but cleansing. Outside, the first birds called softly, their songs echoing faintly through the arches of the cloister. Soon, the bell rang, the first of the day. Its deep tone rolled through the valley, summoning every monk from sleep to devotion. Barefoot and silent, they made their way to the chapel. The air was crisp, the scent of dew and incense mingling as morning broke. The candles still burned from the night's vigil, their flames trembling in the half-light. Aelric knelt with his brothers, the chant rising once more. Te lucis ante terminum. Before the ending of the day, the cycle had turned, yet its beauty remained eternal. As sunlight pierced through stained glass, colors spilled across the stone floor. Crimson, gold, and azure. Dusk danced like tiny spirits in the air. The world outside would soon awaken to its noise and haste, but within these walls, stillness reigned. After prayers, the brothers gathered in the refectory for their first meal. Bread was broken, hands were folded, and the scripture was read aloud. The words seemed brighter in the morning light, promises of mercy, of renewal, of labor made holy. Aelric smiled faintly as he ate, the warmth of the bread spreading through his hands. He thought of the tasks ahead. More manuscripts to copy, herbs to sort, gardens to tend. Each act, though small, was a thread in the great tapestry of devotion. When breakfast ended, he returned to the scriptorium. The room glowed with the new day's light. Dust floated over the desks where quills waited beside open parchments. Aelric dipped his pen into the inkpot and began his work, the words flowing like a quiet hymn. In principio erat verbum. In the beginning was the word. The line always filled him with awe. To write it was to touch the sacred, to mirror creation itself, bringing form to emptiness, order to silence. Each stroke was a whisper of eternity. As hours passed, the monastery hummed with gentle purpose. Bells marked the changing hours. Voices rose in prayer. The garden rustled with life. The monks moved like shadows of peace, their lives bound by humility and rhythm, by faith in the endless turning of time. By evening, the sun cast long rays across the cloister once again. Aelric stood in the courtyard, his hands ink-stained, his heart full. He watched the light fade and felt the same quiet gratitude that began every day, a circle complete, a vow renewed. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Beyond the walls, kingdoms would rise and fall, but here, within the monastery, eternity lingered in every breath, every prayer, every stroke of ink. And when the bell rang once more, Brother Aelric bowed his head and whispered, Deo gratias. After the morning work in the scriptorium, Brother Aelric was sent to assist in the infirmary garden. The air there was sweet with the scent of herbs, rosemary, chamomile, and hyssop. Bees drifted lazily from blossom to blossom, their humming a gentle hymn of creation. Brother Matthew, the herbalist, greeted him with a nod. These roots must be pulled before midday, he said softly, pointing to a patch of valerian. It soothes the restless mind. But only the root, the leaves are too strong. Aelric knelt beside him, hands sinking into the cool soil. Each herb carried a story, a purpose. Some healed fever, others eased pain or calmed the spirit. The monks believed that tending to these plants was a form of prayer, a cooperation with God's natural order. As Aelric worked, his thoughts flowed with the rhythm of the earth. The infirmary itself stood nearby, its door open to the sun. Inside, a few travelers rested, pilgrims, peasants, even a wounded soldier. The monastery did not turn any away. Brother Simon, the infirmarian, moved between beds, murmuring blessings as he cleaned wounds and prepared poultices. Aelric watched as a young man, pale and weak, struggled to lift his head. Brother Simon fed him a spoonful of broth. Peace comes to those who wait upon the Lord, he said gently. The man smiled faintly, and Aelric felt the quiet weight of compassion fill the air. When the bell rang for midday prayers, they washed their hands and crossed the courtyard. The garden glistened in the sun, dew drying on the leaves. Behind them, the wounded rested easier, wrapped in both bandages and faith. The afternoon was bright when Aelric returned to the scriptorium. The air inside was cool and smelled of ink and vellum. He sat beside Brother Oswin again, who was carefully illuminating the first letter of a psalm with gold leaf. Young eyes see what old hearts remember, Oswin murmured without looking up. Aelric smiled, understanding. The elder monk's words often carried hidden lessons. Together, they worked in silence, quills scratching like whispers across the pages. Through the high windows, light shifted with the hours. Dust danced above their heads in golden clouds. Aelric copied verses from the Gospel of John, each word a reflection of light and meaning. The act of writing became a meditation, body still, spirit awake. When he paused, his gaze wandered to the shelves that lined the walls. Each volume was a fragment of human knowledge, scripture, histories, the writings of saints. Here, the world's wisdom was preserved, safe from the decay and chaos beyond the cloister walls. Aelric often wondered how many hands had copied these same lines before him, how many voices had prayed the same prayers. In that thought, he found comfort, a thread of unity stretching through centuries of faith. Evening neared, and with it came the quiet rustle of robes as the monks gathered their tools. Brother Oswin covered his manuscript carefully. The word lives only if it is cared for, he said, his voice barely more than a breath. Aelric nodded, feeling the truth settle deep in his chest. By late afternoon, clouds gathered over the hills beyond the monastery. Their dark edges rolled like slow waves, heavy with rain. The air grew cool and still, the silence deepening until even the birds hid among the cloister roofs. Brother Aelric looked up from his desk, sensing the shift. "A storm is coming," murmured Brother Oswin, his dim eyes glinting in the fading light. Aelric nodded, feeling the weight of the air press against the windows. The scent of ozone drifted in. Moments later, thunder rumbled over the valley. Low, distant, solemn. The monks paused their work, listening as the sound filled the monastery like a warning. Then came the rain, sudden and fierce, beating against the stone like drums of heaven. Aelric hurried to close the shutters, but droplets still crept through the gaps, scattering across the parchment. He wiped them gently, careful not to blur the ink. Outside, lightning flashed, turning the courtyard white for an instant before plunging it back into shadow. In the chapel, the bell rang early for vespers, its voice almost drowned by the storm. The monks gathered, their robes soaked at the hems, their faces calm. As they began to chant, the thunder answered, deep, echoing, like a dialogue between earth and sky. The storm's fury framed their prayers with power. Candle flames trembled, but did not die. Aelric felt the sound of the rain merge with the rhythm of the psalm. Each drop seemed a note, each flash a reminder of creation's force and fragility. When the chant ended, they sat in silence, the rain softening to a steady whisper. The air smelled of wet stone and melted wax. Aelric's heart was strangely full. The storm outside reflected the one within, where faith battled doubt, and peace slowly returned. That night, he could not sleep. From his narrow window, he watched the rain trace silver lines down the glass. The world beyond was hidden, blurred, but beautiful. He thought of how the monastery, like the soul, endured each storm not by strength, but by surrender. By midnight, the storm had passed. The sky cleared slowly, revealing faint stars through drifting clouds. The rain left the monastery shining. Every roof tile glistened, every leaf sparkled under the moonlight. The air felt new, washed clean by heaven's hand. Brother Aelric rose from his bed and stepped quietly into the cloister. The flagstones were still damp beneath his bare feet. The world smelled of wet earth, wax, and pine. Somewhere in the dark, the fountain murmured softly, its voice calm again. He walked beneath the arches, tracing the stone with his fingers. Drops of water still clung to the carvings of saints, catching the moonlight like tiny jewels. The monastery seemed alive, breathing, whispering, remembering. Each echo carried the memory of thunder. In the chapel, a single candle burned on the altar. Its glow reached only a few feet, but it was enough. Aelric knelt before it, his hands folded loosely, eyes half closed. There were no words left, only the slow rhythm of his breath and the gentle crackle of flame. He thought of the storm's voice, how it had spoken with such force. Perhaps, he wondered, God's silence was not emptiness but depth, like the space between heartbeats, like the pause before dawn. In that stillness, he felt something vast and tender watching back. Outside, the wind carried the faint scent of rain-soaked lavender from the garden. The night was peaceful again, but its calm was deeper than before, the kind that comes only after turmoil. Aelric smiled faintly. Faith, he thought, was like the sky after a storm, quiet, endless, reborn. He remained there until the first silver light touched the windows. Somewhere far above, a lark began to sing, heralding the new day. The storm had cleansed not only the earth, but his soul. He rose slowly, bowed once to the altar, and turned toward the dormitory. The first breath of dawn crept gently across the valley. Mist curled over the fields beyond the monastery walls, and the world seemed suspended between sleep and prayer. Brother Aelric stood at the cloister arch, watching the pale light touch the wet stones beneath his feet. The bell tolled once, a deep, resonant call that rolled through the cool air. Its echoes stirred the drowsy birds and awakened the monks from their narrow beds. The cycle began anew, as it had for generations. Yet this morning felt different, washed clean by the storm. Aelric joined the silent procession toward the chapel. Their robes brushed softly, their breath clouding in the chill air. Inside, the candles burned low, their light steady now, no longer trembling before the wind. The air carried the faint scent of rain and incense, renewal and prayer entwined. The chant began, low and unhurried, Benedicite Dominum omnes angeli eius. Bless the Lord, all his angels. The voices wove together like threads of gold, filling the chapel with calm strength. Each note rose like mist, fading gently into the morning sky. Aelric closed his eyes. The sound washed over him, pure and steady. He no longer felt small within the vast stone hall. Instead, he felt part of its rhythm, part of the unbroken hymn of time. The storm had ended, but its memory had become peace. After the service, the brothers gathered in the refectory. Bread was passed, hands folded in gratitude. Through the open windows, sunlight spilled across the wooden tables, catching the steam from their bowls. The monastery was alive again, patient and eternal. Later, in the garden, Aelric bent to touch the leaves still jeweled with dew. Bees moved lazily from flower to flower, and the fountain sang its quiet, endless song. He breathed deeply, feeling the soft warmth of the sun upon his face. Every sound, every drop of water, every rustle of wings, seemed a form of prayer. In that moment, he understood what the monastery truly was, not a prison from the world, but a reflection of it made holy through stillness. He returned to the scriptorium as the light grew stronger. The pages on his desk waited, blank and pale. Aelric dipped his quill into the ink and began once more, the first line flowing like water. Each word became a step, each stroke a heartbeat. Deus est pax, God is peace. The phrase glowed faintly on the parchment as sunlight filled the room. Outside, the bell tolled again, marking another hour in the endless circle of faith. Brother Aelric smiled. The day had begun again, and eternity with it.